Interstate 40 cut through the New Mexico desert like a gray scar under the relentless August sun. Jack Morrison gripped the steering wheel of his Peterbilt with calloused hands, his eyes half closed against the glare reflecting off the asphalt ahead. He'd been on the road for 3 days, hauling farm equipment from Oklahoma to Phoenix, and the solitude of the cab had become his most constant companion for the past 2 years. Since Sarah died, everything changed. The apartment in Tulsa became too quiet. The walls seemed to tighten more and more, and Jack discovered that the road offered a different kind of peace. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it was movement. It was purpose. It was a way to avoid having to face the empty chair at the dinner table every night. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, 3:30 in the afternoon. The tank was half empty, and his stomach rumbled, reminding him that his last sandwich had been 6 hours ago. There was a gas station 40 miles away, according to the GPS. He could hold out until then. The surrounding landscape was desolate in a way that bordered on hypnotic. Red rocks piled up in strange formations, solitary cacti dotted the reddish-brown vastness, and the sky was such an intense blue it almost hurt to look at. There were no other vehicles in sight, which was not unusual on that less busy stretch of highway. Jack turned on the radio, searching for a station that wasn't just static. He found one playing Johnny Cash and turned up the volume, letting the deep voice fill the cabin. Sarah loved Johnny Cash. She used to sing Ring of Fire while making breakfast, off-key and happy, swaying her hips in a way that always made Jack smile. He blinked rapidly, pushing away the tears that threatened to form. 2 years. 2 years since the aneurysm that took her in a matter of hours, without warning, without a chance to say goodbye. The doctors said she felt no pain, that it was quick, as if that made any difference, as if the speed of the loss made the void less profound. The truck covered a few more miles while Jack got lost in memories. That's why he barely saw anything. His brain registered something strange in the corner of his vision, something that didn't fit into the monotony of the desert. He frowned, instinctively slowing down. There, about 100 meters from the road, was what appeared to be an irregular rock formation, but something about it was wrong, a patch of color that didn't belong there. Light blue, perhaps. And movement. There was definitely movement. Jack pressed the brake, feeling the 18 wheels resist as the truck slowed. It was probably nothing. An animal, maybe. A coyote or an injured deer. But something in his chest tightened, an instinct he couldn't ignore. Sarah always said he had too soft a heart, that he picked up stray dogs and paid strangers' bills without a second thought. Just going to take a quick look, he muttered to himself, pulling the truck onto the shoulder. Dust rose in red clouds as he parked and turned off the engine. The silence that followed was absolute. Without the engine's roar, the desert revealed its eerie stillness. Jack opened the door and got out, feeling the heat pound against him like a physical wall. It must have been above 40 degrees outside. He walked toward the rock formation, his eyes adjusting to the distance. What he had seen was not an animal. It was a person, a woman, and she was moving, but in a strange, limited way. Jack's heart raced and he began to run, his feet kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. The closer he got, the clearer it became that something was terribly wrong. The woman was wearing what appeared to be a light blue dress, dirty and torn, and her arms were stretched unnaturally above her head. When he finally reached the rocks, Jack stopped abruptly, his brain struggling to process what he saw. The woman was chained. Thick metal chains fastened her wrists to rings that had been bolted directly into the rock. Her feet were free, but she was sitting on the earthen floor, clearly exhausted. And she was pregnant. Very pregnant. "My God," Jack whispered, falling to his knees beside her. "Ma'am, are you all right? Who did this?" The woman slowly raised her head, and Jack saw that she was in her early 20s, with tangled brown hair plastered to her sweaty face, chapped lips, and very large brown eyes dominating a thin face. When she saw him, something broke in those eyes, and tears began to stream down her face. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please get me out of here, please." "I'll take them off, ma'am, don't worry," Jack said, already examining the chains. They were heavy, the kind used on cranes or to secure cargo. The padlocks that held them closed were industrial, impossible to break without the proper tools. "My name is Jack. What's your name?" "Emma," she managed to say. "Emma Rodriguez. I need to get out of here. He's coming back." A chill ran down Jack's spine despite the heat. "Who's coming back? Who did this to you?" Emma began to tremble, her whole body shaking. "My husband, my ex-husband, Trevor. He brought me here 2 days ago. He said I deserved to die, that the baby wasn't his, and that we both deserved to die here." Jack felt anger rise in his throat, hot and bitter. What kind of monster would do this to a pregnant woman? He looked around, noticing for the first time that there were empty water bottles scattered near Emma and what appeared to be food scraps. He had kept her alive, but only long enough to prolong her suffering. "Okay, Emma, listen," Jack said, forcing his voice to remain calm. "I'll get some tools from my truck. I have a bolt cutter that should take care of those chains. You're safe now, understand? I won't let anything happen to you." He ran back to the truck, his brain working fast. He needed tools, water, and he needed to call the police. But as he opened the toolbox behind the cab, a worry struck him. If this Trevor returned before the police arrived, they would be in danger. Jack didn't have guns, never had. Sarah hated guns. He grabbed the sturdiest screwdriver he had, some bottles of water from the cooler, a blanket, and his cell phone. When he ran back to Emma, she was still where he had left her, but now she was crying more openly. "Here, drink this," Jack said, opening a bottle of water and holding it out to her. Emma drank desperately, water dribbling from the corners of her mouth. "Slowly, slowly. It won't do you any good if you drink it too fast." He draped the blanket over her shoulders to shield her from the sun, then picked up his cell phone. No signal. Of course not. They were in the middle of nowhere. "All right," he murmured, more to himself than to Emma. "Let's cut these chains first, then we'll take you to the hospital. There's a town about 50 miles from here." Jack positioned the bolt cutter on the nearest chain and began to apply pressure. The metal resisted, but he could feel it slowly giving way. Sweat dripped down his face, mingling with the dust. His muscles burned from the effort. "How long have you been married to this man?" Jack asked, trying to keep Emma focused and awake. 3 years, she replied, her voice firmer after the water. "I met Trevor when I was 19. He was different at first. Kind, funny. But after the wedding, everything changed. He started to get violent, controlling. I tried to leave several times, but he always found me. Always." The first chain snapped with a satisfying crack. Jack felt a surge of triumph and quickly moved on to the second. "And the baby?" he asked softly. Emma closed her eyes. "The baby is his. It always has been. But Trevor became obsessed with the idea that I was cheating on him. He hacked into my phone, followed me, accused me of things I never did. When he found out I was pregnant, he was happy at first. But then the paranoia returned. He started saying the baby couldn't be his, that I had gotten pregnant by another man. No matter how many tests I took, he wouldn't believe me." The second chain gave way. Emma fell forward, and Jack caught her, helping her to her feet slowly. She staggered, her legs clearly weak after days in the same position. "Can you walk?" Jack asked. Emma nodded, but as she took her first step, her legs gave way. Jack caught her before she fell, placing her arm over his shoulders. "Okay, I'll help you. Let's take it slow." They began walking back to the truck, each step a struggle against the heat and Emma's exhaustion. Jack kept his eyes on the road, searching for any sign of approaching vehicles. The afternoon was beginning to cool down, but it was still hot enough to be dangerous for someone in Emma's condition. "Why did he bring you here specifically?" Jack asked. "How does he know this place?" "Trevor's a truck driver too," Emma said, breathless. "He knows all those back roads, all those empty places where nobody goes. He planned this. He told me exactly what he was going to do, how I was going to die of dehydration or heat stroke, how nobody was going to find me until it was too late." Jack's anger burned even more intensely. He had known many truck drivers over the years, mostly good men, hard-working and honest. The idea of someone using their knowledge of the road for this made him sick. They finally reached the truck. Jack opened the passenger door and helped Emma climb in, which was a difficult task given her size and weakness. Once inside, she sank into the seat with a groan of relief. "I'll turn on the air conditioning," Jack said, walking around the truck and climbing onto the driver's side. He started the engine, and the cool air began to circulate immediately. Emma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Jack picked up his cell phone again, still no signal. "I'll drive until we find coverage," he said. "Then we'll call the police and an ambulance. You need urgent medical attention." Emma opened her eyes and panic filled them. "He'll know. As soon as the police start looking for me, Trevor will find out, and he'll come after me. He always does." "Emma, listen," Jack said firmly. "This time it's different. He tried to kill you. This is attempted murder. He won't be able to get near you again." "You don't know Trevor," she said, her voice breaking. "He has friends, connections, people who help him. I reported him before and nothing happened. Restraining orders mean nothing to him. He always finds a way." Jack set the truck in motion, pulling it off the shoulder and back onto the road. He understood Emma's hesitation more than she could have imagined. Sarah had a friend, Linda, who had been stalked by a violent ex-boyfriend for years. The system had failed her repeatedly until finally she had to change states and change her name to escape. "So what do you want to do?" Jack asked. "Because doing nothing isn't an option. You need a doctor." Emma remained silent for a long moment, her hands resting protectively on her belly. "There is a place," she finally said, "in Santa Fe, a shelter for women in situations like mine. They have protection, relocation programs. They help you really disappear. One of the social workers gave me the card months ago, but I never had the courage to go. Trevor was always watching me. Jack considered this. Santa Fe was out of the way. It would add hours to his journey, but looking at Emma, at the genuine fear in her eyes and the way she instinctively flinched at every passing car coming from the opposite direction, he knew there wasn't really a choice. "Okay," he said, "let's go to Santa Fe, but first we need to take you to a hospital. You're dehydrated and God knows what else. The baby needs to be examined." Emma bit her lip, then nodded slowly. "There's a hospital in Albuquerque. It's on the way to Santa Fe." They drove in silence for a while, the desert landscape passing by the windows. Jack checked his cell phone every few minutes, waiting for the signal to return. Finally, after 20 minutes, 2 bars appeared. "I have a signal," he announced. "I'm going to call 911. "Wait," Emma said quickly. "Just let me think. If you call now, they'll want to know where I was. They'll start an investigation immediately. Trevor is probably monitoring police communications. He has friends in our city's department. If he finds out I've been found..." Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly. He understood her fear, but he also knew that not reporting a crime of this magnitude was a problem. "Emma, this man tried to kill you. He needs to be arrested." "And he will be," Emma said, her voice desperate. "But let me get to the shelter first. Let me be safe. They have lawyers there, people who know how to handle this. Please, Jack. Please." Jack looked at her, saw the genuine despair on her face and sighed. "Okay. But as soon as you're safe and a doctor has examined you, we'll report this." "Agreed." "Agreed," Emma agreed, relaxing a little in her seat. The sun was beginning to set when they arrived on the outskirts of Albuquerque. Jack knew of a hospital on the west side of town, smaller than the main medical center but with a good reputation. He drove there, parking the truck in the emergency area. "I'll go with you," he said as he helped Emma down. The emergency department was moderately busy. A nurse behind the counter looked up as they entered, her eyes immediately widening at the sight of Emma's condition. "We need help here," Jack called. "She's pregnant and dehydrated. She needs immediate attention." The nurse was already moving, calling for other staff. Within seconds, Emma was being placed in a wheelchair and taken inside. Jack tried to follow her, but another nurse stopped him. "Sir, are you her husband?" "No," Jack said. I found her in trouble on the road. I just want to make sure she's okay." The nurse looked at him with an expression that was part suspicion, part curiosity. "Please take a seat. Someone will be speaking with you shortly." Jack sat down in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs in the waiting room, his hands still trembling with adrenaline. He looked around, seeing the other people waiting, each lost in their own crises and worries. A mother held a boy with a bandaged arm. An elderly man coughed into a mask. A young woman wept silently as she stared at her phone. How much time had passed since he pulled over to the side of the road? 2 hours, 3. It seemed like an eternity and an instant at the same time. 15 minutes later, a police officer entered the emergency department. Jack felt his stomach clench. The nurse must have called them, which was standard protocol for cases of possible domestic violence. The officer looked around the waiting room, his eyes stopping on Jack. "Did you bring the pregnant woman?" he asked. Jack stood up. "Yes, I am. My name is Jack Morrison." "Officer Ramirez," the policeman introduced himself. "May I speak with you over there?" He indicated a more secluded corner of the waiting room. Once they were relatively alone, Ramirez pulled out a notepad. "Can you tell me what happened? How did you meet Mrs. Rodriguez?" Jack recounted the entire story, from seeing something strange from the road to finding Emma chained to the rocks. He omitted no detail, and Ramirez meticulously noted everything down, occasionally asking questions to clarify specific points. "And you said she mentioned her ex-husband, Trevor Rodriguez?" Ramirez asked. "Yes. She said he's a truck driver, that he brought her there with the intention of letting her die." Ramirez shook his head, his jaw clenched. "I'll need you to show me exactly where you found her. We need to photograph the scene, collect evidence." "Sure," Jack said. "But what about Emma? She's afraid he'll find out she's been found. She said he has connections." Ramirez frowned. "Connections with whom?" "She mentioned people in their city's police department. I don't know exactly where they're from." The officer made a few more notes. "I'll look into this. If there are corrupt officers involved, this becomes an internal affairs matter and possibly a federal one." He looked at Jack. "You did a good thing today, Mr. Morrison. You probably saved 2 lives." Jack simply nodded, not trusting his own voice. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired and angry that the world could contain men capable of doing something like that to their own wives. Another hour passed before a doctor finally came out to speak with them. She was a middle-aged woman with grey hair pulled back in a tight bun and kind eyes. "Mr. Morrison," she called, "I'm Dr. Patel. Mrs. Rodriguez is asking for you." Jack followed the doctor through the double doors into the treatment area. Emma was lying on a stretcher with an IV in her arm and monitors strapped to her abdomen. She seemed better already, her face more flushed, her lips no longer cracked. "Jack," she said when she saw him, extending a hand. He took it, surprised by the strength of her grip. "How are you?" he asked. "The doctor says the baby and I will be fine," Emma said, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Severe dehydration, some injuries to my wrists from the chains, but nothing permanent. The baby is fine." "She was very lucky," Dr. Patel added. "One more day out there, and we could be having a very different conversation." Jack felt his legs go weak and leaned against the wall. He had arrived just in time, only just in time. "Emma told me about the shelter in Santa Fe," the doctor continued. "I already called there. They are preparing a room for her and may receive her tonight. I will release her in a few hours as soon as we finish the fluid therapy and do some more tests." Ramirez, who had followed Jack, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm going to need a full statement from you, and we're going to need to arrest Trevor Rodriguez immediately." Emma looked at Jack, then back at the officer. "He lives in Portales," she said, "on the other side of the state, but I don't know if he's there right now. He could be anywhere." "We're going to issue a statewide arrest warrant," Ramirez assured, "and I'm going to alert the highway patrol. If he's on the roads, we're going to find him." The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and depositions. Jack had to formally give his statement, sign documents, and provide contact information. He called his shipping agent, explaining that there would be a significant delay in delivery. Fortunately, the agent was understanding. When Dr. Patel finally released Emma, it was already dark outside. Jack helped her back to the truck, moving slowly across the parking lot. Emma was still weak but determined. "I can't thank you enough," she said as Jack helped her up. "You saved me. You saved my baby." Jack shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, it wouldn't have," Emma said firmly. "Most people would have seen it and kept driving, or thought it was just trash in the desert. You stopped. You cared." Santa Fe was about an hour north. Jack drove through the night, the truck's lights cutting through the darkness. Emma slept most of the way, her body finally relaxing now that she was safe and fed. The shelter was located at a discreet address in a quiet residential neighborhood. From the outside, it looked like just another large, ordinary house. Jack knew this was intentional. Shelters like this didn't announce their presence to protect the women inside. A woman in her 50s with short hair and a gentle expression opened the door when they rang the doorbell. "Emma?" she asked, and when Emma nodded, the woman pulled her into a careful hug. "I'm Gloria. We spoke on the phone. Welcome. You're safe now." Jack stood awkwardly on the porch while Gloria led Emma inside, speaking softly to her about the house rules, procedures, and what to expect. After a few minutes, Gloria returned to the door. "Mr. Morrison, Emma would like to say goodbye." Jack entered a welcoming entrance hall. Emma stood near the stairs, looking small and tired, but also, for the first time, hopeful. "I don't know how I can pay you back," she said. "You don't need to," Jack replied. "Just take care of yourself and this baby, okay? And don't let that man find you again." "I won't let you," Emma promised. She reached out and hugged him, and Jack hugged her back, feeling her tremble slightly. When they parted, she was crying again, but these were good tears this time. "You're an angel, Jack Morrison. A true angel." Jack shook his head, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I'm just a truck driver who was in the right place at the right time." "No," Emma said. "You are more than that." "Much more." Gloria walked Jack back to the door. "Thank you for bringing her here," she said softly. "We'll take good care of her, and if the police need you to testify, I'll be available," Jack assured them. "Whatever you need." He returned to the truck and sat there for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel, trying to process everything that had happened. When he left Tulsa 3 days ago, his biggest concern was making the delivery on time. Now he had helped rescue a pregnant woman from certain death and possibly helped put a violent man behind bars. Jack's cell phone rang, startling him. It was an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Mr. Morrison, this is Officer Ramirez. We have news. Trevor Rodriguez was arrested about an hour ago at a truck stop near Amarillo, Texas. He is in custody now." Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. He resisted? No. Actually, he was drunk at the rest stop bar when our colleagues from Texas arrived. He went in without a fight. Ramirez paused. We found evidence in his truck. Photos of the rocks where Mrs. Rodriguez was chained. Purchase receipts for the padlocks and chains. Text messages to her describing what he planned to do. He will be charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and a host of other charges. He's going to be in jail for a long time. Good, Jack said, his voice hoarse. That's good. We'll need you to return to New Mexico to testify when the case goes to trial, Ramirez continued. But that could take months. For now, you are free to continue on your way. After he hung up, Jack finally started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. But instead of heading back onto I-40 and continuing toward Phoenix, he found himself driving aimlessly through the streets of Santa Fe. The city was quiet at this hour, the lights of the houses creating cozy yellow squares in the darkness. He thought of Sarah. He thought about how she would have reacted if she were alive to hear about this. She would have been proud of him, he knew. She always believed in the best of people, always believed in doing the right thing, even when it was difficult. I miss you, Jack whispered to the emptiness of the cabin. Every single day I miss you. But for the first time in 2 years, pain wasn't all he felt. There was something else there too. Not happiness, not yet, but purpose. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, he still had something to offer the world, that his life still had meaning even with Sarah no longer in it. Jack finally found his way back to the highway and headed south. Phoenix was still many hours away, and he had a delivery to make. But now, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just driving to escape the pain. He was driving forward toward the future, toward whatever came next. The nocturnal desert stretched out around him, vast and dark and full of possibilities. 3 months later, Jack was in his apartment in Tulsa when the phone rang. He was having breakfast, scrambled eggs that weren't as good as Sarah's but were edible, when he saw Emma Rodriguez's name appear on the screen. Emma, he answered quickly. Is everything all right? Everything's great, Jack. Her voice came, clear and happy. More than great. I wanted you to know. I had the baby last week, a girl. She's perfect, Jack, absolutely perfect. Jack felt a smile spread across his face, a genuine smile that surprised even himself. That's wonderful, Emma. How are you both, you and the baby? We are fine.